Hey there guys, Alex from Mental Health Thinking here, and I've got another video for you this week. This one's explaining what goes on with social anxiety, what it is, what the cycles that lead to it, and give you a brief idea of some of the things that we go through to help people out with social anxiety, because a lot of them you can do yourself if you've been having trouble with social anxiety, and you can also just help friends out with it. So I'm a provisional psychologist, and everything I say in all these videos, they're things that I tell clients to help them better understand what's going on regarding mental health. So on a simple level, social anxiety is the highly impairing fear of being judged in a social situation, and it leads to a lot of anxiety and worry about what people might think. It's different from just being shy, because you can be shy and you can be kind of stressed out by social situations, but it's not very impairing. You still get to do the things that you want to do. You could also be an introvert and simply just enjoy the time either by yourself or with small amounts of people more than being in kind of the hustle and bustle of being around a lot of people. And that's absolutely fine too. This is about people who get really stressed and it's causing problems in their life. Now, the general understanding of what actually happens to lead to social anxiety, and this is important because I'm talking about the cycles that lead to it, and it gives you a chance to cut them off, is that it usually starts from some sort of situation where they are feeling really socially awkward. Now that could happen in high school, that could happen with a transition to going to university, perhaps a transition to going to work where they move away from a lot of their friends, and they get ideas over time that they're different and they're strange in some way, and because they're anxious in those particular situations that they found awkward as the catalyst, they start thinking of themselves in general as being awkward and doing all these funny things. Now, it could be a concern for your hands shaking when you're speaking in public, or it could be the idea that your voice trembles. Maybe that you see silly things, or maybe there's some characteristic of the way you look that other people don't really notice, but you really keep in mind. And what it leads to generally is a lot of what we call safety behaviors. They're behaviors that you would use in order to feel safe from these concerns that you have. So you worry that people are going to see your anxiety and judge you for it. So those particular things that you're afraid that people are going to see, like let's say that you're worried about your hands shaking, you might keep your hands to you. You might keep them in your pockets as you're doing public speaking or something like that. If you're worried about your voice trembling, it might lead to really just thinking about any sort of trembling your voice might be doing. You might be in social situations and decide to get out of there as soon as possible, or really rehearse what you're going to say to people so that you can just know exactly what you're going to say it, and then get out of there. The problem with all these safety behaviors is that they can be a bit of a crutch. And when we have a crutch and we start leaning on that and relying on it, what happens is we do need it. We need it because we've relied on it. Now, what happens as well with these safety behaviors is they bring our attention inward. They bring our attention onto us and not the conversation. So what that can mean is that you're not following the conversation naturally in the way that you normally could, because you're focusing on yourself, and your anxiety is going up tenfold because all your attention is on all the little things that you might be doing wrong. So in therapy with somebody with social anxiety, what we'd do is help them to see the actual impact of their safety behaviors, because they come in with the idea that these things are the only things getting them through and they're better off with them. But in fact, and look, you put up the experiment, test it out and see whether it is the case, but invariably, in my experience and in the experience of psychologists that I've spoken to, those safety behaviors, they make anxiety more. And what you can do is prove to people that being in a social situation, you can do this for yourself if you're having trouble with social anxiety, think of what those behaviors are for you. Think of the things that you're worried about and think of what you do to try to circumvent that worry and try to actually reduce it and see if you feel more natural and better in the conversation. If you've just spoken with somebody who you're close to and who you're comfortable speaking with in this way, you might also ask them if you seemed to have more flow in that conversation. You might test it out in more and more situations that are more stressful for you. Maybe public speaking or something like that if that's something that you have to do. Sometimes social anxiety can be only present for people during public speaking because it is something that's really one of the highest stresses for people subjectively today. So after proving to yourself that these safety behaviors are not actually useful and they increase the anxiety, it's about stepping that up and trying to decrease the amount that we rely on our safety behaviors in general life. Through doing this, we will do a great deal to reduce our anxiety in a social situation. Because a lot of what's going on is our attention is being drawn in, largely due to these safety behaviors, but because of our anxiety as well, we need to combat that. So we can begin by simply focusing on bits and pieces of the environment. You might notice that the person's wearing glasses, that their hair's different, anything like that. You don't need to mention it, but you can notice these things to bring your attention back out. You want to reduce that over time so that that doesn't become a crutch as well, but this is a way of bringing your attention out. What we can do at the same time is use mindfulness to increase our ability to attend to things preferentially. I'm going to do another video very soon on mindfulness, so I won't get right into it, but you can look it up. There's a lot on mindfulness these days, and what it basically is the preferential attention on something specific. Now that could be your breath, that could be some small point on your forehead later down the track when you get better at it. It can be running through different parts of your body so that you're focusing on them. This is one of the easier ways and the one that I normally select to teach people first off. But all you're doing is simply attending to that, noting that other thoughts are going to come into your mind, but rather than trying to push those other thoughts away, to simply accept them and to come back to the task at hand. Because you do that, and you might do it for 10 minutes twice a day, you might do it for 30 minutes a day, there's different rates that you can do it. I personally used to do it 30 minutes a day. But you can think of this like muscle building for your mind. It increases that natural resource that we have to switch attention. So when we're anxious in social situations and our attention is all on us, but we'd rather it be on the external, we can use that mindfulness training to actually think, okay, I accept that I'm thinking about myself now. What can I focus on outside? What can I focus on in the conversation is best? What can I focus on outside of myself so that I'm not becoming more anxious by thinking about myself too much? So I hope this gives a good idea of what social anxiety is. That's it for me today. If you like this video, press the like button. If you want to see more, and I'll be posting them every week, click subscribe. Thanks a lot.